Okay, here's my retirement planning video for all of us who are over 55, and that's me, and that's probably you too. Let's get at it. By the way, with lifespan these days, you're not planning 5 years, you're planning for closer to 50 years, and that realization is the beginning of wisdom. I'm asked all the time about retirement planning. The financial services industry has all sorts of advice and products for that market. And in my opinion, it's all wrong. Let's find out why. It's wrong because we're not going to veg out. In the 1920s, seniors' lifespans were in the 60-year range. So when you were 55, your retirement planning consisted of what to do for the next few years. But hold it, then came modern lifestyles, hygiene, advanced medical care for life-threatening illness, and a range of safety improvements. Today, many families live well into their 90s, and they live actively. As a result, the investment horizon for a family age 55 or 60 is in some ways very similar to a young family age 30. Both need to plan for 30 years or more of markets, investment surprises, changing world events, governments gone wild, and a range of the unknown. Please do me a favor. Cut with the investment calculators. Assumptions about the future are just plain dumb. The future is unknowable, so plan for it. That's right, plan for the unknown. Let me ask you, in the 1890s, did England foresee the end of empire? Did Europe foresee world wars that killed off 2 generations of young men? Did society foresee penicillin that extended lifespans 25 years? Did anybody foresee jets, telephones, TVs, computers? In fact, other than Jules Verne, did anybody have a clue? No one knows the future. And the art of investing is to take risk, although we don't know what the future holds. So sound retirement planning starts with the basic rules of sound investing. Own assets that grow with the times, whether quality companies or quality real estate. Don't fall for the lure of fixed investments. $1 today will be worth pennies by the time you are 90. Remember those railroad bonds that were the core of every investment portfolio in 1920? They're all gone. And of course, live off your income. Paying for the Jaguar out of principle is the key reason families go broke, and it's the reason that a generation that inherits their money often loses it. They don't lose it in the market, they spend it. And finally, keep thinking and changing. The investing environment is going to change constantly. What was certain will become past history. There is no such thing as hunkering down with a fixed investment, especially as we get older. Now, there are 2 key differences between the investing strategy of the older versus the younger generation. Both generations control risk by having a cash cushion, but they provide their cash cushion completely differently. The younger generation is, or should be, constantly and periodically adding cash to their portfolio, so their savings flow acts as the cash cushion. The older generation, however, is constantly withdrawing cash from their portfolio. So they have to sell investments periodically and systematically to generate that cash. That cash flow difference requires a different market timing strategy. The younger generation is best off using a systematic dollar cost average buying strategy, putting a set amount into investments at regular intervals. Systematic buying guarantees that more investments will be bought when prices are lower. The older generation, however, has to be a bit more nimble in their market timing because they are net spenders of cash. After a prolonged rise in markets, the older generation begins to periodically liquidate small amounts of investments and setting the proceeds aside for the next bear market. The differing cash flow strategies of the generations are the key way each manages the risk of market panics and crashes. The younger generation manages that risk by continuing to systematically buy after the market crashes. That is, the younger generation needs the discipline of continuing to buy even when the market is no fun. Now, the older generation manages that risk by systematically liquidating small amounts of investments as the market rises. The older generation has an equally difficult psychological task. They need to sell a bit when investments are most fun. For both generations, the discipline of acting periodically rather than reacting to scary headlines is the key to building and maintaining an investment portfolio in the midst of uncertainty. Look, all professionals try to evaluate and structure their portfolios for what they perceive as the risk in the markets. But the underlying core of investing strategy for each generation is to be systematic in what we do. Whether that's systematic and periodic buying for a younger generation or systematic and periodic selling for an older generation. Neither generation should ever get caught up in the all or nothing game. Neither generation should find themselves jumping into the market because the market is exciting at last, or heading for the hills because the market seems scary at last. Playing that psychological all or nothing game is a loser. Well, I don't know if that's the retirement planning lecture you expected from me. In this industry, a lot of people use calculators that say, oh, the return of stocks is going to be 8% a year for the next 30 years. That is complete and utter nonsense. We can't foresee the future. Therefore, we have to manage our portfolio, accounting for uncertainty and accounting for change. We in the older generation need to keep young in our thinking while exercising the discipline and prudence that hopefully we've earned over the years. You and I in our 50s, 60s, and 70s have a long way to go. So let's be prudent and successful at what we do. I look forward to talking to each of you individually about this difficult but fun topic. Thanks and regards, Ed Jurgens.